our guest speaker, Lani Hotch. Lani Hotch and I go way back. I remember being in a class with her 26 years ago, something like that. But she has agreed to come and speak to you all, and I appreciate her taking the time. So let's give a warm welcome to Lani Hotch.
Thank you, Lily. I'm set. Time down. Not only so that I don't talk too long, so that I talk long enough. Well, that was such a lovely program. I just want to thank all the people that took part. I loved how we started off with that music. Thank you, Mr. Davis, for that number that you guys sang. It had a good message, I think. And I think the high school choir, and I wonder why there's not more kids in that choir, because they got it going on. They do. It's so good. Bring music to the world. I enjoy that so much. And Deborah Schnell, thank you for stepping up and contributing your talent for come to the Cheese. And those kids, that little ones that sang with Ted Clark, Sue Haley, that just blessed me. I mean, it brought tears to my eyes because those kids just gave it their all. You know, they just belted it out there, and it just warmed my heart so much to hear them, their enthusiasm. Thank you, Teddy, for working with those kids. And it just blessed me, brought tears to my eyes because there's nothing I love better than seeing somebody give it their all when they're doing a performance, whether it's singing or dancing. Just put your whole heart and soul and body into it. So I thank you all for inviting me to speak today. Ms. Moran, she shared some of the things that I wanted to share today, but I think it bears repeating. My name is Lani Hotch, Lily announced. I come from Pluckwan. I was actually born in Pluckwan, but I grew up, my younger years were spent in Haines. I went to kindergarten here, and I graduated from here, although my family moved to California for a short time during my middle school years. And I lived in Pluckwan now for the better part of my life. My husband and I raised our 3 kids out there and tried to raise them in the culture, and also our faith is a very important part of our life. So getting into Elizabeth Peratrovich, she's widely recognized now as a civil rights leader, similar to Martin Luther King Jr., who we celebrated last month. But in Elizabeth's day, there was no phrase for civil rights. That phrase hadn't even been coined yet. It wasn't used. Elizabeth was a Tlingit woman who was born in Petersburg in 1941, July 4th, as a matter of fact. And one thing that's little known about her is that she actually lived in Pluckwan for a time. Her father, Andrew Wanamaker, was a pastor in Pluckwan. I believe back in, I don't know how long ago it was. I was going to look up the date and I couldn't find the historical document I was looking for. But she grew up part of the time in Pluckwan. Her father served at the Pluckwan Presbyterian Church. And so she was a woman who was steeped both in Christian values and Tlingit values. She had a very strong sense of right and wrong, and she was unafraid to speak up. And I think Ms. Moran was speaking to that very same issue, the importance of speaking up. when she saw or experienced something that didn't seem right to her, she did something about it. And one of our Tlingit values is to be strong, have courage. And sometimes you do need to speak up when you see something that's not right. I saw this in the Catholic Church years ago. They were having a Christmas sale or something. There was a poster on the wall that said, "The words of those who speak are made louder by those who keep silent." So, Elizabeth, when she was young, she would, or when she was growing, even she would see signs like "No natives allowed" or "We cater to whites only," and she decided to do something about it. She took action. She didn't just grumble about it and do nothing. She wasn't just talk. She took action. She organized and solidified a base of support throughout the Alaska Native Brotherhood, throughout Southeast, through the Alaska Native Brotherhood and Sisterhood. In fact, she was the grand president of the Alaska Native Sisterhood, and I believe her husband, Frank Peratrovich, was the grand president of the Alaska Native Brotherhood. Now, that organization was formed in 1912, the Alaska Native Brotherhood, and I believe if it's not the first Native organization in the United States, it's one of the first. And that organization was a powerhouse, really. And some of the founding fathers, one of them, William Paul, he was the first Alaska Native legislator, and he worked hard to get citizen status for Alaska Natives and get the right to vote, because back in the territorial days of Alaska, this was before 1957 when Alaska became a state, it was, natives weren't allowed to vote. And in order to get the right to vote, they had to get 5 non-native people to attest to the fact that they'd given up all their native ways and sign a document. And in fact, at the Heritage Center in Klukwan, there's one of those documents on the timeline for history. And so that was done away with through the efforts of the Alaska Native Brotherhood. And the work that Elizabeth did to get the Anti-Discrimination Act passed, that helped too. They organized with the sisterhood camps all throughout Southeast. Klukwan's camp is camp number 8. I think, is Haines camp 7? 5, camp 5. So each community had a group of people that organized, and they did a lot of things. They got Native students in school, and they passed a lot of other things that were helpful to Alaska Native people. And we get the benefit from the work that they had done. And so often we don't realize whose shoulders we're standing on. Those people that worked hard so that we would have the benefit to vote, to go to public school, to attend theaters or restaurants or live in any home that we want to. Those were battles that were hard fought and hard won. And we take those privileges for granted these days. And it's good to recount this history so that we don't have to keep fighting those battles. And the right to vote. That was, I think, the most profound thing that our people learned is voting is power. Voting makes a difference. And so I encourage you all to get out and vote. It's very important. It's very important for our future. And maybe I'm getting off subject a little bit, but those are the things that Elizabeth fought for, and the AMB and ANS fought for. So we need to exercise that right to vote. So back to the anti-discrimination bill. It was passed on February 16th, 1945 by the Territorial Legislature of Alaska, and that's nearly 20 years prior to the Civil Rights Act that was passed in the United States. That was passed in July of 1964. So that's why we've all gathered here today to recognize Ms. Peratrovich, her role in getting our nation's first anti-discrimination act passed into law. So when Natalie Benassi asked me to speak here today, she asked me to just share my thoughts, and so I wanted to recount some of that history. But now here are my thoughts in regard to Elizabeth Peratrovich. Our nation was founded on the premise that all people are created equal, but that was not the reality back in the 1940s. And it was good for Elizabeth and the AMB and ANS to rise up and correct that. My thoughts for today, they kind of line up with Mr. Davis's choir song, is we should not keep fighting the battles of the past. We need to move beyond that, and we need to learn to live in harmony with one another. My uncle Ed Warren often used to say this: there is one race, and that's the human race. We all have the same basic needs, the need for food, clothing, shelter, companionship, and so on. And today, we're living in difficult, troublesome times, and it behooves us to learn to hold each other up. Now, some of you may remember Austin Hammond. He was a Tlingit leader in Haines for many years, and he worked with young people too. He's the one that started the Chilkoot Culture Camp, and he used this analogy. You look into the forest. We have forests all around us, and if you pay attention, there are many different kinds of trees in the forest. The spruce, the hemlock, the birch, the alder. Pluckman, we have a lot of maple and cottonwood. And all those trees, they grow up and they have different attributes. You can distinguish a birch tree from a cottonwood tree. The birch have very graceful branches, and they're thin and they hang. And the cottonwoods are very upright and little craggy branches, and real thick bark. And the maple, they turn orange in the fall. So they all have different colors. The yellow of the cottonwood leaves, the evergreen trees. And they all contribute something in the forest. And the thing about them is their roots are all connected underneath the ground. And that's the way we should be as people. Recognize that we're all connected in one way or another. And those roots, they help hold each other up. If you see one tree off by itself, the roots will be uprooted if there's a strong wind blowing. But when they're all together and those roots are enmeshed with each other, those trees are going to stand strong. So that's what that saying means in our Tlingit traditional values, how to hold each other up. Holding each other up means to give honor and respect to each other, show kindness, give grace to one another when people make mistakes or fall short. We may need that same kindness and grace from others when we fall short. Okay, I'll cut it short here. So another thing, and I appreciate again Mr. Davis, because I'm a musician, somewhat. I wouldn't say I'm a master musician, but I do my part. And if my instrument is out of tune, it makes an awful sound. I mean, it just gets under my skin to hear it out of tune. And so I need to tune it. I need to tune it to the other instruments that I'm playing with. If I sing off key, and I was in choir all 4 years in high school, loved it. Gary Matthews was my choir teacher. And, if you're out of tune, you can hear it. And so, speaking of living in harmony, letting our voices blend with each other, honoring the differences. We don't all have the same voice. Just like the trees don't have all the same appearance. Some have needles, Some have leaves, some have big leaves, some have little leaves. We're all different, but we're all connected. And so we need to break down the walls that divide us and get to know our neighbors, find our common ground, and learn to appreciate our differences and see how we can support each other in our common humanity. And I believe if Elizabeth Peratrovich was here today, she would agree with that. It will be good for ourselves, for our neighbors, our nation, and even our planet. Now, I have a lot of thoughts about how to live in harmony with nature too, but I will save that for another time. Thank you all for allowing me this opportunity to share my thoughts with you all. Playing Tlingit.